So let us be in continuity with the same. The chapter, The Making of a Scientist. Dear students, I think you are able to look at the basic qualities of this genius child. And you must have learned number of life skills. Number of life skills. First one is curiosity. Curiosity to upgrade knowledge. Second is sincerity. Third, dedication. And if we look at next, fourth one is was a very obedient guy. He used to respect his mother from the core of his heart. So that is why he was following every instruction of his mother. So we are done up to page 33, I think. Now it's time for line by line explanation of page number 34. I think very clear. Let us start. So before starting, I would like to highlight very fine quotation. Winners are not different. They do the things differently. So I think you are very clear. No further explanation of this quotation is required. Richie was not different. He used to do things differently. I think very clear. So if we look at the last part of the this particular page number 33, we have to look at Richard Abreit was just 7-year-old when he was able to just make a collection of number of butterflies, 25 species of butterflies. And after that, he was feeling that it was the end of the innovation of his butterfly collection. He was thinking on that particular line. But just look at the beauty of this sentence, probably. He was not 100% sure about this particular point that he would be able to look at deep level of innovation in the collection of butterflies. But he was to get that feeling that he was able to do the best and was recognizing that particular point that was the end of his butterfly collection. Mother was able to observe actions and reaction of that guy. Very clear up to this particular point. And while she was able to observe actions and reactions of that guy, she had arranged a children's book. The name of the book was The Travels of Monarch X. I think very clear, very clear. You are able to look at the character trait of mother of Richard Abreit. She was ever ready to spend money for the upgradation of knowledge of that child. Why she was able to observe that particular point, that child was feeling that no further collection of butterfly was required. She had arranged a very fine book for him. And the name of the book was The Travels of Monarch X. So just look at the content of that particular book. The content of the book was that book which told how monarch butterflies migrate to Central America. Offered the word of science to the eager young collector. The content of that particular book was how monarch butterflies migrate to Central America. He had studied and studied and studied and studied, and ultimately, doors of science were open for that eager young collector, that is Richie or Richard. Very clear up to this particular point. Here we are able to look at the things in very serious order. Let us move forward. At the end of the book, readers were invited to help study butterfly migration. It was really a wonderful book, and at the end of the book, readers were asked to assist study butterfly migrations. They were asked to tag butterflies for research by Dr. Frederick A. Urquhart of the University of Toronto, Canada. Just look at the meaning of this sentence. At the end of the book, instruction was given. The readers were invited to help study butterfly migrations. How? They were instructed to tag butterflies for research by Dr. Frederick A. Urquhart of the University of Toronto, Canada. Abreit's mother wrote to Dr. Urquhart, and soon Abreit was attaching light adhesive tags to the wings of monarchs. Richie had started his work. Abreit's mother had written to Dr. Urquhart for knowing the details about that, mother of that child had consulted Dr. Urquhart, and soon Abreit had started that particular assignment. What was the assignment? Just tagging butterflies for research. That started. How? By just attaching light adhesive tags to the wings of monarchs. Very clear. Anyone who found a tagged butterfly was asked to send the tag to Dr. Urquhart. Anybody who used to look at a tagged butterfly was instructed to forward the tag to Dr. Urquhart immediately. That was instruction. Very clear up to this particular point. There is no doubt so far as this particular paragraph is concerned. Now just look at the next. The butterfly collecting season around reading lasts 6 weeks in late summer. Just look at the season of collection of butterflies in reading. We are very clear so far as reading is a place where Abreit was born and brought up. Very clear up to this particular point. I have already given you details about this place. So, butterfly collection season used to last 6 weeks in the end of summer season. Late summer, while summer season was about to be ended. Very clear up to this particular word. No doubt. See graph below. Below, I think you are able to look at the graph. This is graph. I think very clear. Number and kinds of butterflies collected in 6 weeks. Think you are able to study kinds, number collected. You are able to read this graph in a very serious way. If you're going to chase them one by one, you won't catch very many. So, he was genius personality. Here means Richard Abreit was thinking on that particular point that if you are going to, I think very clear, if somebody wanted to, the collection of butterflies in a very serious order, it was very difficult to chase butterflies one by one. I was able to note that particular point, genuine point. And ultimately, nobody could ever be able to catch very many means number of butterflies. Very clear here. Richard wanted to highlight that particular point, that it was really difficult to collect butterflies. If somebody wanted to collect the butterflies by chasing them one by one, really difficult to collect a number of butterflies. So he thought and thought and thought and he was able to take action in a very serious way. Look at the action taken by him. So the next step for Abreit was to raise a flock of butterflies. Immediately he had taken a next step. What was his next step? To raise a flock of butterflies. That was his next step. Now just look at how he would catch a female monarch, able to catch a female monarch, take her eggs. He used to take her eggs and raise them in his basement. He used to raise them in the basement of his house through their life cycle. The life cycle process of butterfly. From egg to caterpillar, then to pupa, then to adult butterfly. Very clear up to this particular point. He was able to use the basement of his house for just creating butterflies, number of butterflies. How? I think very clear. Catch a female monarch, had taken her eggs, raised them in his basement, and through their life cycle from egg to caterpillar, caterpillar to pupa, pupa to adult butterfly. And you are able to recognize the life cycle of butterfly. You must have studied in science. Then he would take the butterfly's wings and let them go. After raising them, he used to tag the butterfly wings, and then he used to allow them to move out. For several years, his basement was home to thousands of monarchs in different stages of development. For many years, the basement of his house was home to thousands of monarchs in different stages of development. Very clear, there is no doubt so far as this sentence is concerned. So now just look at the next. Eventually, I began to lose interest in tagging butterflies. Eventually means finally, ultimately. He had begun to lose interest in tagging of butterflies. Very clear up to this particular point, there is no doubt in that. It's tedious and there is not much feedback, Abreit said. Abreit was able to announce that particular point, that it's tedious. This means tiring, time consuming, exhausting, difficult, tough, and there is not much feedback. He was able to recognize that particular point, that there was not positive response. Feedback means response. Very clear, we have to look at this particular point, that he was very genius personality, he was hard worker, but at this particular stage he was able to look at that particular point, that really it was a tiring job and he was not able to get proper response out of that hard work. Very clear. He had evaluated the time consumed for that particular activity. I think he was not able to get proper response out of that. So that is why this particular word came into his mind, that is tedious. Otherwise, he was enthusiastic personality. Very clear. Because he was not able to get outcome. Very clear. Abreit said, he had just announced that particular point, that it was really a tiring task and proper response. Input was more than output. He was able to recognize that particular fact because he was a brainy fellow. He was able to evaluate as a result of action and reactions immediately. The brainy child. In all the time I did it, he laughed. Only 2 butterflies I had tagged were recaptured. And they were not more than 75 miles from where I lived. Just look at the beauty of this sentence. He had just highlighted the fact. What was the fact? Abreit had announced that in all the time, had spent a lot of time for just raising number of butterflies, monarch butterflies, and tagging them, and just was ever busy in that assignment. So that is why in all the time, it consumed a lot of time in that particular activity. I did it. He laughed. He was laughing while he was announcing that particular point, that he was able to just recapture only 2 butterflies. I tagged number of butterflies, but he was able to recapture only 2 out of many. And they were not more than 75 miles from where I live. I also announced that these butterflies were very near to the place from where they were flown. They were not more than 75 miles from where I lived. Very clear. This point was highlighting that they were not able to cover the distance. So able to get the output that he was not getting positive response out of that activity. So that is why he had considered that particular assignment as tedious and had stopped that particular activity immediately. And very clear up to this particular point, very clear. Now just look at, I think I have already told you that you have to answer the questions after every episode of chapter. So with this first episode of this particular chapter is over, and I think 2 questions already given. Read and find out, dear students. I think you are ever ready to answer the questions in a very serious way. Still, it is my moral responsibility to let you know the answer. Very clear. How did a book become a turning point in Richard Abreit's life? The first question. So just look at the answer of this question. Richard had a deep fascination of collecting butterflies. We introduce this answer, we have to highlight this particular point, basic quality of Richard Abreit. So we have to look at, Richard had a deep fascination of collecting butterflies. Now just look at the book aroused his interest in monarch butterflies and opened a new world of science for him. I think you are able to get 3 pinpoints of this answer. Very clear. A turning point. I think you are ever ready to look at this word. A turning point. You're able to recognize whether it is a phrase. Turning point means a big change, a drastic change. Very clear. Now just look at question number 2. How did his mother help him? Wonderful question. How did his mother help him? I think you are able to get the answer of this question if we look at this part. Page number, this one. You have to just answer lies here. Question is very clear, I think. How did his mother help him? So if we look at this particular question, answer is his mother helped him by encouraging his interest in learning. And if we look at the details, just use these words directly. Words are, she bought telescopes, microscopes, cameras, mounting materials and other equipment and helped him in many other ways. And moreover, this point should also be added, she took him on trips. I think you are able to collect the pinpoints of this answer. So after reading any text, dear students, you must be able to design number of questions. Let us start with episode 2 of the same chapter. Look at. And before that, again, you will have to read the questions. Now look at. Second episode of the same lesson. Then in the 7th grade, he got a hint of what real science is when he entered a county science fair and lost. It was really a sad feeling to sit there and not getting anything while everybody else had won something, Abreit said. His entry was slides of frog tissues, which he showed under a microscope. He realized the winners had tried to do real experiments, not simply make a neat display. Just look at this paragraph. While he was in 7th grade, he was able to get a hint of what real science is. He was able to get a clue of what real science was. He was able to recognize a particular point. Because he was a little bit grown up at that particular moment. And moreover, he was able to get practical experience. What was practical experience? When he entered a county science fair, when he had entered or participated in a county science fair. County means local, regional. Science fair and lost. He had entered, he had participated in science fair, but was lost. He was not able to get anything. It was really a sad feeling to sit there and not get anything while everybody else had won something. Every participant was winner over there. In that science fair, the result of that science fair was there. Every participant was winner. He was not able to get any prize. He became very upset. He became very sad. Abreit said. Words of Abreit. Dear students, failures are stepping stones to success. They encourage us to work hard next time. He was able to get very fine point here. Significant point here. He was able to recognize what real science was. He was able to recognize that. That was more important than any prize at that particular stage while he was in 7th grade. His entry, he had participated in that science fair, and his project was slides of frog tissue, which he showed under a microscope. Very simple. Arranged slides of frog tissues. He had shown slides under a microscope. Very good. He realized the winners had tried to do real experiments, not simply make a neat display. Able to recognize the fact that Other participants who were declared as winners had tried to do. They were involved in working experiments. Real experiments were able to look at the things, they were showing the experiment. Very clear. Working experiments were able to look at. And he had designed, I think, arranged tissues. He was just very simple. He was just making a neat display of pro tissues. At that particular moment, he was able to recognize the fact that if he wanted to be winner in any science fair, he must involve himself in working experiments or real experiments. Very clear. Learned a great lesson. And he was able to recognize that science, what is science? Practical. Without practicals, I think science is useless. So that is why at that particular young age, while he was in 7th grade, able to recognize that particular fact. That if we wanted to be winner, we must be ever ready with practical experiment. The students, you must be able to recognize that particular fact that practical experiments require a lot of effort. It's not easy. But before that, he was not in the knowledge of that. So that is why we must not forget failures are stepping stones to success. Very clear up to this particular point, because every failure encourages us to work hard next time. If we are serious, condition is we must be serious. Very clear. Let's move forward. Already, the competitive spirit that drives Richard Abreit was appearing. I knew that for the next year's fair, I would have to do a real experiment, he said. The subject I knew most about was the insect work I had been doing in the past several years. Now he was just planning. Dear students, we must not forget this particular quotation, that we never plan to fail. But we always fail to plan. Without planning, we can never ever be able to get success anywhere. Anywhere. Note it down and add it into the dictionary of your life skills, dear students. Add it. I think very clear up to this particular point already. The competitive spirit that drives Richard Abreit was appearing. Just same spirit was with the same enthusiasm. Same competitive spirit that motivated Richard Abreit to just do the best for the next science fair. Do the best for the participation of the science fair of next session. I knew that for the next year's fair, I would have to do a real experiment. Planned and was able to look at that particular idea that for the next year's fair, he must be ever ready for the practice of the working experiment, the designing of working experiment. Just planned. But proper planning. Very clear. Student, never forward. Haste makes waste. If we will plan out the things in a proper order, automatically we can never ever be able to look at defeat or negativity in our life. Planned and planned and planned out the things that the next year science fair we were ready with real experiment. Subject same. Fame. The subject I knew most about was the insect one. Done a lot of work on butterflies. He wanted to continue. I had been doing in the past several years. Busy. The experiments of butterflies. Spent a lot of time the experiment of butterflies. He wanted to look at the working experiment on the same insect. Very good. I think you are able to look at the very fine light scale that rolling stone gathers Rome. Rome was not built in a day, dear students. I spent a lot of time for innovating butterfly. And he wanted to be in continuity for the same. He wanted to select the topic for working experiment based upon butterflies only. Very clear, there is no doubt in that. Let us move forward. So he wrote to Dr. Urquhart for ideas. And back came a stack of suggestions for experiments. Those kept Abreit busy all through high school and led to prize projects in county and international science fairs. Just look at the beauty of the first sentence of this paragraph. For consultation, he had written to Dr. Urquhart for unique ideas. And Dr. Urquhart had sent a number of ideas, number of suggestions for experiments, because he was a very experienced personality. Very good. He had consulted Dr. Urquhart, and Dr. Urquhart given suggestions for experiments. Able to peep deep into the experiments, so that is why he had remained busy all through high school and led to prize projects in county and science fair, international science fair. Busy projects, preparation of working models, working experiments. The suggestions of Dr. Urquhart. Guide is very important, dear students. The person who can give you right guideline, you must be able to respect that particular person. Because we can't be able to choose right path, particularly when we are teenager. So that is why he had written to Dr. Urquhart, and response, he was able to get number of suggestions for experiment. So that is why he remained busy all through high school. High school is till 10th class, 9th and 10th. Ever busy in experiments. Was ever busy in experiments. He had studied everything keenly. He was able to arrange the things in a well-planned way. So that is why he was winner everywhere. Very clear up to this particular point. There is no doubt in that. You are able to look at this particular point. Led to prize projects in county, able to receive number of achievements, prizes. In county means regional, in very local and international science. very clear. Studied and studied and studied about working experiments with the suggestion of Dr. Urquhart. Ultimately, he worked hard, able to achieve prizes in local as well as international science fairs. Very clear, there is no doubt in that. Just look at the next. For his 8th grade project, Abreit tried to find the cause of a viral disease that kills nearly all monarch caterpillars every few years. Just look at the topic. Just look at the topic he had chosen for working experiment. Very clear. Same, insect is same, that is butterfly. And the topic is, while for next year, I think in 7th grade, he was totally failure because simply he had designed tissues of frog and he had shown microscope. And this year, he was able to get a big lesson that working experiment was must if you wanted to receive any award or any admiration. But before proceeding further, he had consulted very fine personality, Dr. Urquhart. Already told you, dear student, the guide is more important than our actions. Very clear. Guide plus our action is equal to real or genuine success. Very clear. So for next year, that is for his 8th grade project, Abreit tried to find the cause of a viral disease. Topic was, he tried his best to search out the cause of viral disease that used to kill nearly all monarch caterpillars every few years. Very fine topic. Bombastic topic. Very genuine topic. Abreit thought that disease might be carried away by a bit. I was thinking on that particular line earlier that the disease might be carried away by a beetle. Very clear up to this particular point. Early to that particular project or that particular innovation, he was thinking on that particular line that this particular disease is just carried by a beetle. A beetle is an insect characterizing caterpillars in the presence of beetle. Look at the overview of his working experiment. He tried his best to raise caterpillars in the presence of beetles. Practical. But didn't get any real results. So not able to get any genuine result. He said. I went ahead and showed